So I thought I'd come here to do my next video. I came here, 3 years ago, and people come here to eat, drink, chill, swim. There's little rubber rings. Yeah, so here we are. I thought I would come down here and do the video rather than do it in the apartment, which is where I previously recorded it. And just some light-hearted content today, nothing too heavy. Religion, ego, storytelling. So where shall I start? Now we are ready for story time. So I was sat in my apartment in Melbourne 6 months or so ago, pretty deep in thought, and I had this sort of kind of epiphany moment when it comes to belief in religion. And it's quite simple, really. And what it really was the difference between nothing and something. We have this term infinity, and if you think about nothing, you think about a graph, and at the bottom of that axis, on the scale on the y, from 0 to whatever you want. But if you plot something on that bottom x-axis, where on the y the scale is at 0, clearly that's it, 0. But it's almost to the infinity, the degree to which you can have something above 0. The amount of decimal places you could go on for with a 1 on the end, it's still something. That marginal little fraction above 0 is something. And so when you think about belief, and you think about connecting that belief to an ideology called religion, then you ask people, what do you believe in? And a lot of time people say they don't know. You get these different terms: agnostic, atheist, etc. There are some people that say, I don't believe in anything. I believe in nothing. And my opinion on that is, really? You believe in nothing? 0? Not even that tiny little fraction above 0? Because I think if I took 10 people who said they believe in nothing and spent an hour or two with them, really getting into how and why and how deeply have they thought about them believing in nothing, do they still actually believe that there is absolutely nothing that they believe in? Because you can talk to a scientist or a mathematician and say, okay, prove it. And they can prove it. They can do an experiment, they can do some mathematical, show you working out, and prove that something equals something. And so no one can dispute it. That's what it is, right? However, I don't know how many people have not ever felt deja vu, or have felt that thing inside their stomach, in their gut, when something doesn't quite feel right. And then they either decide to go with their gut or against their gut, and eventually they've realised there was something in that. I don't quite know what it was. I can't write a mathematical formula. There isn't a science experiment that explains it. But I believe that is something. It's not nothing. So I do think that if I had long enough with 10 people individually, let's say, to discuss how they believe in nothing, that we'll get to a point where I think most of them, 8 of them, let's say, would agree that the line is not on 0. There's something. Even if it's just deja vu. Even if it's just a gut feeling. Because that's something. Alright, so my first argument is about being able to find agreement and common ground with everybody. With the difference between something and nothing. So the first point of call is about agreeing that the vast majority of people believe in something. Okay, so why would we continue? Why do we need to continue that any further? Why do we need to say, okay, but my something is different than your something? And my stories that I've been told by my religion or by my culture or by my whatever are different than yours. So that means we have a problem. At the end of the day, all those people believe in something. No one really knows who's right and who's wrong. But at the end of the day, we all agree that there's something rather than nothing. Okay, let's park that there for a minute. What are all those stories for? Why have humans taken time out of their busy days, feeding themselves, clothing themselves, washing them, everything that we have to do, to remember these profound stories and pass them on, write them down, create books, combine lots of stories into something called maybe a Bible? Why have we done that? For millennia. Well, again, let me backtrack a bit and tell you the story, or what I think is going on there. Well, humans in general, we're not hardwired to be good. Well, I think we're hardwired to have an ego and to basically build lots of pyramid schemes. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you start a business. Why are you starting a business? You're starting a business because you want to make perhaps more money. You want to be in control of your own destiny. You don't want to be an employee. Maybe you want to start employing people. You're not setting up a communist regime whereby every single person that you employ and bring into your business is equal and has the same salary, the same voting share, the same rights, the same... No. People are building businesses and becoming the CEOs and becoming the prime ministers and becoming leaders and all of these things because they've got an ego, because they want to be in control, they want to have power. And we are competitive people. And so I think a lot of these stories that we're told are to help us circumvent that ego, the competitiveness, and actually, have that charitable side come out more, give back, look after our neighbours, look after the weak, look after the poor, look after the old. And obviously, as more and more people have stayed away from religion, and it's kind of a bit scary, isn't it? Sometimes when you think about religion, some people find it a bit too much. But at the end of the day, without these stories, without this charitable side of passing on knowledge and wisdom from generations to generations on how humans can stay happy and healthy through the generations, then you see what happens. You get these concentrations of power with very few people. And I actually didn't like history at school. I found it a bit of a useless subject, and just spent the whole time talking to the person next to me. But now I've gotten older, I realised that a lot of the things that we learn about that are in history is really useful to know and learn from, because just like fashion goes round in circles, so does what we do as humans if we don't learn from our past. And I think that's why these stories really matter, that are passed on. Let's forget about calling it a religion. Let's forget about putting a label on it. But let's try and remember that the reason for these stories is so that we can be charitable to each other, so we can help each other, and so we don't all end up trying to be an individual at the top of the food chain who can be proud of ourselves and go, look what I've created. And because we all, what did they say? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We're all going to end up in the same place. And it takes me back to an idea that I have shared in a previous video, which is, you know, when you look at the people who are the most successful, who generate the most wealth for themselves and their families, what are a lot of them doing with it? It's not necessarily all good stuff for the better of humankind. You hear a lot of them building bunkers to survive some kind of apocalyptic event. And, you know, you think back and you look at your history lessons, you look at, you know, the unanswered questions that we've got from humanity. There are civilizations that we can't obviously talk to anymore and find out what went wrong. You know, why are you guys not around anymore? Why are we uncovering through archaeology these lost civilizations? Clearly, when you look at, you know, what the Incas built, when you look at what the Egyptians built, is it the Aztecs? Yeah, there's a lot of civilizations that built some incredibly sophisticated architecture that we probably can't quite even still understand how they built it. We'd struggle to do it today. With the technology we have today, we think we're so advanced, but we still don't understand how they did it. Well, when their civilization ended, clearly it didn't wipe out humanity because we're still here. But their stories kind of died. Their civilization died. But what they built still remains. And it's interesting for me, in my moment of revelation to myself, why would for example, the Egyptians decide, out of everything they could build, decide to build pyramids? If you wanted to, you know, pass on a story, knowing full well that your civilization is going to die, and so the human story can't really be told from human to human, through generation to generation, and you were smart, intelligent people, what symbol would I leave behind for the next generation to explain, hey, guys, do not do this. If you do this, you too will end up spending millennia building a civilization and burning yourselves out of it. Maybe what I might do if I was that civilization that was super intelligent, trying to build something that would last millennia to then warn the next civilization when they eventually, of course, find it, is I might build some pyramids that are so profound and remarkable and such a, you know, interesting piece of architecture and skill and engineering. It makes the next civilization ask, why would they build that? And rather than just gloss over it and have that hanging question mark, perhaps it's an idea of, well, guys, you're gonna repeat history. We are naturally born to build pyramid schemes, to want to be the boss, to want to be in control, to be what they almost had as their pharaohs, these kind of living gods. What do you think we're doing with these billionaires? How many people kind of worship these billionaires? How many people would do anything to be one, to be closely aligned to one of them? I mean, look at me. I'm free as a bird, sat next to a lake in a bamboo hut in Thailand, talking about these profound ideas. Do I need to be a billionaire? Do I need to be rich? Sometimes I think I do. Sometimes I compare myself to the other person. And it makes me incredibly sad, anxious, and unhappy. And I can spend a lot more time, as I have done. I've spent, 15 years or so chasing money, as my mum put it when I was a kid, worshipping mammon. But we just go from ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We don't take it with us. It doesn't buy us some extra, or no one knows if it buys us any extra goodwill, if there is such a thing as heaven. No one really knows, but what we do know is there are a lot of people who have enough to help other people. Even the most charitable people, the most giving people, the most kind, generous people that I've ever met are the people who don't have a lot, and that they're willing to give to their neighbor, to give to their friends, to help another human. The people at the top, the people who are the richest, their biggest motivation seems to be to get richer, to get more. And I don't know where that leads. So what do you think? What are your ideas? Do you agree? Send me a like if you agree. Send me a like if you don't agree. Comment, subscribe, and share. Love ya. Bye.